Hey, welcome back. My name is Kristen, and I'm continuing in the series about alcohol problems. And I wanted to make a video just touching on an idea about what helps people stay sober if that's the choice they make. If they are someone who they determined they really need to maintain abstinence for their health, well being, their survival. And for their life, there is a certain shift that is extremely helpful. I feel like it's really imperative that this kind of shift happens. And so what this is about is I've noticed that it's almost, I want to say it's universally the case in my practice, my experience, that people who are struggling with alcohol, they tend to have a feeling about themselves that is not not very positive. If I were to ask them, how do you feel about yourself? Like, can you say that you have love for yourself? A lot of times the person feels very uncomfortable with that idea or that question. The whole concept of loving themselves feels uncomfortable. It might provoke anxiety. And it's just not a part of how the person thinks about themselves or relates to themselves. And a lot of times what goes along with this difficulty in having a positive regard for themselves is the idea that the only way I can feel maybe good about myself, possibly if I could, would be if I somehow, I don't know, get someone else to approve of me, prove to others that I'm good enough or that I am enough, this kind of earning a sense of worthiness, proving their goodness or proving that they're, worth something through service, actions, achievements. What else? It could be whatever the person attaches to in terms of what they've always used to kind of compete in the world, in life. Maybe someone is using athleticism or beauty, or it could be intelligence, intellect. It could be strength. It could be being the best, scrappiest fighter, But the issue is they must do these things to then feel okay. But like with perfectionism, there is never an end point to this way of being in life. The moment you might prove it, 1 minute, well, there's another minute coming up here, and you haven't proved it in the now over here. And then you got to keep proving it to yourself because, the person just doesn't, there isn't like a solid base of a sense of worthiness or value or feeling like they're enough or feeling like they're okay. It's just, it hasn't been integrated or rooted into themselves and how they feel. And it's, like I said, it's been pretty universal in my experience that someone who's struggling with alcohol has this kind of framework and way of navigating through life. And a lot of times it can be very, it's like there's a very harsh, very critical, very nasty voice that is, in their mind. We all have, internal dialogues going on and whatnot. But that voice is very, very harsh. It's very exacting. It's very demanding. It's like there's a bully in the person, but they feel like it's them saying it, and they believe it. They've agreed with the bully, essentially, and then they felt very badly about themselves. And so what this does is sets up a lot of anxiety in life, a lot of stress, because of course if you're walking around in life and you don't feel like you're enough, or you feel like you're constantly under pressure to fool everyone else into thinking you're enough, because you don't believe it, there's a lot of then just endless stress and pressure, and that then sets them up to be vulnerable to something like alcohol, because alcohol works very quickly in the human body to cause a sense of, it kind of sedates things. It's anesthetic. It removes pain, both physical and emotional. So it can have this relaxing effect, obviously, and it can seem to the person who's been highly anxious for maybe their whole childhood or, young adult life, it seems like alcohol is a reasonable thing to use to relax their body, relax their mind. And so it set up that vulnerability. So then it starts to cause the person to position alcohol, like I said, as the solution to this problem. It's not a solution. It's like a temporary soothing. But to live in a state of not feeling worthy or not feeling like you're enough is quite intolerable. And a lot of times, people who really do get kind of really deeply into this alcohol problem, where they become, almost physically dependent or physically dependent, there's a lot of self-loathing, and sometimes it's been reinforced by the disease process itself, because a lot of bad things happen, and then there's a lot more self-blame and shame about the mistakes that occurred when the person was drinking, and whatever things went wrong, right? Because it can just get really crazy, and so it can contribute to this. So the alcohol process can contribute to the problematic way of feeling about themselves that they had before the alcohol problem. Then kind of co-opted that way of being, and then kind of it all works together to spiral towards that end point of having a serious problem. So if the person could be helped to adopt a different feeling about themselves and start to be much more understanding about how it came to be that they came to feel that way, and that if they could be helped to see that it's not true, that they're not enough, it's not true that they're not worthy, it's not true that they're not valuable, and if they have all kinds of stories from their childhood or their past that sort of prove it to them, well, I made this mistake, or, my father left the family, so obviously I wasn't loved, so there must be something wrong with me, or my mother didn't love me, or, whatever the scenario is, if the person could be helped to see that, well, unfortunately, those people were making mistakes. They were just making mistakes, and they were making mistakes in how they spoke to you, and then the bad experiences you had in childhood, well, maybe that was other people making a lot of mistakes, and maybe you weren't treated well because other people were making mistakes. But see, none of what they were doing actually could be said to be evidence of your value or your worthiness. And this is something I talk about quite a bit. I'm writing a book about it currently. So it's something I think about a lot, this sense of worthiness and value that really does, optimally, it was something that we took on as it's just an inherent part of ourselves. So in an optimal life environment for a child, parents or a parent or caregiver would be communicating this unconditional love, this sort of, I appreciate you. You are so valuable to me. I have so much love for you. I value you. And my nose is very itchy all of a sudden. Oh my goodness. So, okay, so that would be ideal, and actually that would be more in line with reality, because we know if we have any amount of mental health, okay, and balance, we know when we see a newborn infant, we know without language, explanation, narrative, commentary, we recognize value. It's inherent to the life. It is, it came with this life. We see that, we know it, we don't even need to speak about it, right? The babe, we're not asking, well, what's the baby's history? Did the baby start proving, and earning, like, what kind of grades are they going to have? Like, let me hold off on the, assessment of their value until they're in third grade. Then I'll tell you if I think the child's valuable. No, that's ridiculous. But many of us ended up somewhere in life coming to adopt a belief system like that about ourselves. Again, it's not about blaming parents or caregivers at all. Things are just the way they are in every environment, and people are only able to use what they have, what they were given when they were kids, et cetera, right? So these ideas, it's a bad idea to think you've got to earn your value, and it's just simply not true, and we know it's not true just by what I just said. When we see a baby, a toddler, we hold that one in high value. Now, and if you have your own child, you know that there's nothing that baby or that toddler could do. Again, if you have enough mental health and balance, okay, yourself, you know that there's nothing that child could do or not do in future that would cause you to value that child less. Well, you're the same as that. You are the same as that. We're all equally inherently valuable. We're all unique. We all, bring our own very unique perspective, because we all have a unique life. Even if we're raised in the same house, we have a whole unique experience of life from the beginning, okay? So the worthiness is inherent, and if a person can switch their framework and how they navigate through the world from this sort of, I have to earn my keep here, or I have to prove and reprove my value to myself and to others all the time, move from there to, I'm good. See, oh no, I'm happy with myself. I'm good. Like, if I've made mistakes in the past, I forgive myself because I made a mistake. And then, if I'm ashamed of something, well, let's keep the shame down to about a 3-second rule, where we feel it and then we learn the lesson from the mistake, and then we say to ourselves, well, okay, now I know that I don't like how I feel when I do this thing, so I'm not going to repeat that anymore. Please forgive me, and move on. And we don't carry the shame with us as if somehow that means something about us. Of course not. So the reason why this is important and how this works into this whole alcohol problem, or recovering from it, or becoming abstinent, or being able to let go of alcohol, is that it removes probably about 90% of your stress to suddenly realize that you're okay and you always were. And ideas that you had kind of acquired over the years about not being valuable were not true. And so you're kind of relieved of this pressure. And then it's like you can be free. You can be free of worrying about what other people think. You can be free of everything. You can just be free. Now, with that freedom, with that ease now that you could feel, relaxation, calm, a lot more peace, a lot more just not worrying. Can you see how the idea that you need a thing to go into your body to bring about that peace is now unnecessary? It's completely not even desired because you're already there. It's not necessarily something you can switch to overnight, not at all. But there's no reason you couldn't. You know, if you see at least intellectually what I'm saying is true and it makes sense. And also we know that if you have a positive self-regard, it actually helps your health overall. There's research that speaks to this, okay? It only makes sense to have a positive regard of yourself and to feel happy with yourself and to just be delighted with yourself, just like you would be with your child if you have one, or a baby if you see one, or a toddler, or even a puppy. So if you could have that same feeling of delight for yourself, and then you can start to appreciate everything you've overcome so far, everything you've been through in your life. And then it can all kind of make sense for you that you did feel so badly about yourself, but that you didn't have to. And you can be free of it now. You don't have to live the rest of your life feeling that way. So that is the idea that is really important, or it's really helpful, very, very helpful, to come to realize your own value. It's inherent to you, and you can relax. You can relax in life. It might take you time to practice that because you're not used to working through life relaxed. You're not accustomed to that. But it's just bit by bit, incrementally, you just start to play with the feeling of that about yourself. Okay, I hope that's helpful. I hope it's, beneficial to you to play with. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.